Good morning, I'm Gretchen Ho. We're coming to you on this Friday, the 28th of November, bringing you Morning Matters because your mornings matter. Get to the stories that matter today. Former President Rodrigo Duterte will not attend today's reading of the ICC Appeals Chamber's judgment on his bid for interim release. The court has approved his signed waiver of appearance, allowing the verdict to proceed even in his absence. The Senate has approved the 889 million peso budget of the Office of the Vice President for 2026 in under 5 minutes, with no questions raised on the floor. Vice President Sandro Duterte was present during the session, but only one senator stood to speak. And at least 23 Filipinos affected by the Hong Kong apartment fire are confirmed safe, but many still urgently need assistance. The Philippine Consul General says some remain in temporary shelters while others have been taken in by employers. Welcome to our program, Morning Matters, where we talk about the issues you need to know for the rest of your day. Now, first on the agenda. With no questions raised on the floor, the Senate passed the 889 million peso OVP budget for 2026 in just under 5 minutes. Here is a report.
In under 5 minutes, the Senate approved the 889 million peso budget of the Office of the Vice President for 2026. Vice President Sara Duterte personally attended the plenary, but no senator raised a single question about the OVP's budget. Only Senator Robin Padilla, a Duterte ally, stood to thank the chamber for retaining and even increasing the Vice President's funding.
Maraming salamat po, sponsor, Senator Sherwin Gatchalian. Kundi ako po'y magmamanifest lamang. Ako po'y natutuwa sapagkat dito po sa ating bulwagan ay atin pong hindi binawasan ang budget ng ating pangalawang Pangulo, bagkus ay dinagdagan sa lahat po ng mga senador. Maraming salamat po at hindi po nagmula dito sa ating bulwagan ang pang-iipit sa ating pangalawang Pangulo. Muli po, maraming salamat at pinatutunayan ko po ng napakalaki ng naitulong ng ating pangalawang Pangulo.
He also highlighted the OVP's assistance during the calamities and emergencies.
Sapagkat alam niyo po, sa akin pong karanasan sa tuwing may dadating na kalamidad, kalungkutan, kamatayan, naandyan po lagi ang ating pangalawang Pangulo upang makiramay, tumulong. Kahit saan pong lupalop sa Pilipinas, makikita po natin ang opisina ng ating pangalawang Pangulo at siya mismo pumupunta sa mga lugar na hindi pa po naabot ng kahit na sinong naging public official.
After the session, VP Sara was seen meeting with her Senate allies, including Senators Bongo and Amy Marcos. She briefly faced reporters but declined to take questions, offering instead a Christmas greeting to the Senate press corps.
Sa inyong lahat, sa Senate beat ng Friends from the Media, the reason na pumunta ako dito ay para batiin kayong lahat ng Blessed Christmas and a Happy New Year. And I wish you good health in the year 2026. And we'd like to thank the Senate of the Philippines for approving the OVP year 2026 budget.
According to Senate Finance Committee Chair Win Gatchalian, yesterday marked the final day of budget deliberations. The Senate is expected to open the period of amendments for the 2026 national budget next week. But one absence stood out. Senator Bato de la Rosa, assigned to defend the Department of National Defense's budget, was again not present and has not attended any session since Congress reopened on November 10.
Yung kay Senator Bato lang, nagpaalam po ba siya na absent siya even budget day?
Hindi, he has not gotten in touch with me since the break.
What do you make of it, SP, na hindi siya nagpaalam? Pwede po yun, SP?
Oh yeah, malalaki na sila. It's their own lookout.
Senate President Tito Soto said there is currently no clear penalty for senators who failed to defend the agencies assigned to them, though he intends to review the rules.
Is that okay na hindi nila na-defend yung agency na dapat i-defend nila?
Hindi okay yun. In the first place, dapat hindi mo hiniling na makuha mo yung mga chairmanship na yun kung hindi mo naman, kung kaya mo. Sana, kung hindi mo kaya, hindi mo dapat hiniling na makuha mo yung mga chairmanship na yun. Especially vice chairmanship ng budget, national defense, napakahalaga eh. So, I leave it to Senator Gatchalian, who's the chairman of the Committee on Finance. Siya na bahala kung anong gagawin niya.
He added that Senator De La Rosa has not reached out to him amid talk of a possible ICC warrant.
House Majority Leader Sandro Marcos wrote to the Independent Commission for Infrastructure expressing his readiness to appear before the body at any time. The letter comes after former Congressman Zaldi Co accused Marcos of allegedly facilitating over 50 billion pesos worth of insertions between 2023 and 2025. ICI Executive Director Brian Hosaka confirmed that the commission has received Marcos's letter. He noted that they acknowledge Marcos's willingness to appear without a subpoena.
Well, right now, if you read the request of Congressman Sandro Marcos, it was not stated there. So based on our rules, unless there's a formal request for an executive session, the default will be live stream. Ang commission naman ay bukas sa any information, especially here na merong pupunta, regardless of who that person is, will voluntarily appear and testify under oath, malaking bagay sa amin. We take note of his willingness on his willingness to appear voluntarily before the commission, and we will wait for the commission to eventually set the date.
Agriculture Chief Francisco Tiu Laurel steps in to defend First Lady Liza Araneta Marcos amid former Congressman Zaldi Co's allegations over her role in the controversial onion importation mess. Here is a report.
Napakasinungaling talaga niya.
Agriculture Secretary Francisco Tiu Laurel Jr. slammed resigned Congressman Zaldi Co over his accusations against First Lady Liza Araneta Marcos. In a video released by Co on November 26, he accused the First Lady of involvement in the surge in rice and onion prices. According to Co, her brother Martin Araneta controls onion importation. He claimed that when the House investigated the spike in onion prices in 2022, FL Liza allegedly called then House Speaker Martin Romualdez to stop the inquiry.
Kaya walang natuloy at walang naparusahan. Dahil pala, kontrolado ng kapatid ng First Lady ang importasyon ng sibuyas.
He also claimed the same thing happened when rice prices surged in 2023. Cos said Tiu Laurel had presented a confidential report to the House Committee on Agriculture which allegedly indicated that the First Lady controlled rice importers. But the DA Secretary presented what Cos said was the confidential report in question. The First Lady's name was not on the list.
Ito ho ay walang katotohanan. Fabricated lie ho to. The First Lady has never meddled in any DA matters. Napakasinungaling talaga niya.
He added that Martin Araneta also had no role in onion importation. He said the onion price hike in 2022 was due to a supply shortage.
If may big-scale smuggling na nangyayari during that time, nakakasiguro ako na hindi tataas ng ganito ang presyo. Hindi ito logical. Hindi rin totoo na involved si Martin Araneta sa onion importation or any smuggling or importation issue.
Tiu Laurel said the only true part of cost claims was that they discussed lowering rice tariffs in 2024. But he said the former lawmaker actually wanted zero tariff, contrary to his statement in the video claiming 15%. The DA chief plans to file cyber libel charges against Co.
Saldi ko, ang masasabi ko sa iyo, umuwi ka na, harapin mo lahat.
While the First Lady has not yet issued a direct response to Co's accusations, she shared a pointed message on Facebook. She said that while others may prefer theatrics, she would rather focus on teaching law students how the law works, rooted in truth and proof.
At least 23 Filipinos affected by the Hong Kong apartment fire in Tai Po are now safe but still in need of assistance. Philippine Consul General Romulo Victor Manzano Israel Jr. told One News that some of them remain in the shelter, while others have already left with their employers. Israel also confirmed that the family of the Filipinas still in the ICU has already been contacted by partner agencies. Authorities are now trying to reach 59 other Filipino domestic workers believed to be living in the damaged apartments to ensure everyone is accounted for.
We have the OWA and MWO with us, have assured our workers of Philippine government's assistance. So those who were affected by the fire will receive monetary assistance, and those who are in need of medical help as well, so we'll have additional assistance.
Coming right up with the November 30 anti-corruption rally just days away, what should Filipinos expect? We speak with Tindig Pilipinas co-convener Kiko Aquino D on calls to rise above political colors, the objectives of the rally, and how organizers plan to keep the momentum going after the event. Keep it here. Welcome back. You're still watching Morning Matters here in One News. Senator Bam Aquino urged Filipinos to put aside political colors in addressing corruption. Aquino pointed out that the real victims are ordinary citizens, not politicians. He called for attention to those who suffer the consequences of systemic failures rather than framing corruption solely as a partisan issue. On November 30, the Trillion Peso March movement will stage its biggest anti-corruption rally yet, aiming to push for accountability and transparency in government. To talk more about the November 30 anti-corruption rally, we have Tindig Pilipinas co-convener Kiko Aquino D joining us here on Morning Matters. Welcome back to the program.
Hi, good morning, Gretchen. Good morning to everyone watching today.
Okay, first of all, I just want to get your response to Senator Bam Aquino's call for Filipinos to put aside political colors this coming Sunday. Does that mean we're going to see pro-Duterte, anti-Duterte supporters in one venue?
But I think it's the same position as September 21, no? So we're not pro anyone and we're kind of anti everyone, no? So if that's what you're expecting when we say set aside political colors, then yes, no. Definitely, I think the common call of the rally doesn't. While you're happy to call out whichever politician we want, no, the common call of the rally is ilantad, meaning transparency, ibalik, meaning forfeiture, ikulong, which is what everyone has been saying the whole time, igalang ang 1987 Constitution, and ipanalo ang sambayanan kontra dinastiya. So we're putting, as we've seen in the last few weeks, no, political dynasties have been such a big contributing factor to the corruption that we're seeing. And so we're putting that right alongside our calls against corruption for this November 30.
Okay, but for the November 30 protest, there has been some confusion over which group is rallying where. So the People Power Monument rally, yan ba ay Tindig Pilipinas rally? Can you enlighten us over what's going to happen?
Right. So yung Tindig, isa lang siya sa mga organizing groups para sa EDSA People Power Monument sa November 30. Again, yung broadest alliance namin, it's called the Trillion Peso March Movement. And kasama dito yung CBCP at ibang mga religious groups. Kasama dito yung iba't ibang mga civil society organizations. Tindig is just one of the different organizers po. So this is the part 2 of the rally that we had in People Power Monument last September 21.
Oh, but the program, is it organized by Tindig Pilipinas?
We had significant contributions naman po, but again, we're part of a coalition, so it's not, so I don't want to claim na Tindig yung gumawa ng buo, no? But just on the topic of the program, no, we're expecting to have a full day of events on November 30. So from 8:45 to 9:30, the program will be led by our partners from different labor unions in the labor sector because it's really a red letter day for the labor sector, November 30 Bonifacio Day. 9:40 to 11 o'clock will be an interfaith program, and part of that program will be the Sunday Mass that will be held there at People Power Monument. 11 o'clock to 2 o'clock will be the main program where the different civil society groups, religious organizations will be making our main calls. And then 2 to 6 o'clock will be the youth-led program where, aside from the youth also giving voice on the issue of corruption, we've also invited a lot of the artists who volunteered to perform for us, to perform during that. Most but not all will perform during that segment.
So si Ben and Ben at saka si Catriona Gray will be 2 to 6 p.m.
Baka pinamp up namin ng konti. It's we're moving stuff around. But definitely hindi lang purely speeches yung 11 to 2. Pero that's where we're front loading a lot of the more serious stuff, for lack of better term.
Just to another thing to clarify, no, is Akbayan part of Tindig Pilipinas?
That's right po. So,
Yes.
Tindig, and again, Tindig is just one of the many organizers of the Trillion Peso March, but Tindig is composed of different political parties. Nandiyan yung Akbayan, Liberal Party, Mamameng Liberal, Magdalo Party, but also we're working with a bunch of civil society organizations, yung Alyansa ng mga Samahang Pantao, that's a group organizing a lot of urban poor and other sectors. There is Every Woman for the women's sector, etc., etc. So it's a broad coalition.
And how different is this trillion peso march at the People Power Monument from the Kilusang Bayang Kontra Kurakot at the Luneta, which will happen on the same day?
Well, I think the similarities are more important than the differences. No? Both of these groups are consistent as far as standing up against corruption and also not propping up any politicos who've been involved in corruption issues. So I think we have a lot of respect for each other. There might just be some differences in terms of the specific calls made on the day itself. So on our end, for instance, while we respect the call for resignations, I think that's within the Constitution, that's not a position that our group has arrived at this point. No? So it's just a different level of consensus between the two groups, perhaps.
Oh, yun na, yung kayo ay you're not calling for resignation. But what if, let's say, a supporter, a pro-Duterte supporter comes into your rally at the People Power Monument and holds up a placard saying, Marcos resign. How would you deal with that?
I think as much as possible, we want to respect freedom of speech. No? So if individuals call for Marcos resign and they're not unruly, they're not disrupting the program, well, that's a relatively minor issue. I think what we're more sensitive about are things that are explicitly beyond the bounds of the 87 Constitution. So kung halimbawa may panawagan sila sa armed forces to withdraw support, I think that's definitely beyond the bounds. And we have marshals, just like we did noong September 21, may mga marshals naman na pumapaligid from the organizers with IDs, and they will ask people to put down such calls. And if that's not, if it can't be resolved at that level, medyo close coordination pa rin po tayo sa ating PNP, who will be securing the perimeter but are also on hand to assist if our marshals need that assistance.
Bukod dun sa withdrawal of support as something that could be taken as seditious, ano pa yung iba pang mga bawal? I mean, parang na pinaka-iingatan ninyo?
Again, Gretchen, parang rally naman siya. As much as possible, it should be a space for freedom of speech, and we don't want to police too many things. No? So, ang very clear red line are things outside the bounds of the 87 Constitution, which to me, ito yung mga calls that call out the military. And then if there are things that are not aligned with the calls of the protest, so for example, yung mga resign all, again, hanggang maaari, if you're just gonna put up a placard or two and then, or resign Marcos, resign Duterte, something like that, if you're gonna put up a placard or whatever, you're welcome. If you have signs calling out particular politicians, you're welcome to put up those signs. But if it gets to the point na marami kayo at sadya yung dinidisrupt yung program, that is, I think, where we'll step in. So it's more, we want to make sure the program runs smoothly. We want to make sure that everyone is safe, and we want to make sure that we're clear about our support for the 87 Constitution. I think that's the framework that we're working with.
Because there was some confusion back in November 16 and 17 when UPI had their rally naman dito sa EDSA. yung QC parang pinatigil sila ng mas maaga kasi sinabi na meron na daw seditious remarks, no? Which was, we didn't get clarity over what those remarks were, but meron mga hindi pinapasok kasi yun nga yung panawagan nila. In the same way that the INC rally also stop the pro-Duterte supporters from joining them. So in a way, parang ayaw, I mean, nabanggit to ni Rafaela kahapon, you're very careful about the rally being hijacked. What are you seeing
That's right,
about that possibility?
So definitely, we're in constant communication with the PNP. We're having several meetings with our marshals. Kahapon lang, actually, we were able to, I think, if I'm not mistaken, we were able to secure sort of more people to volunteer to come to marshal. We're talking with a lot of groups, yung mga dating bikers for Lenny, riders for Lenny. We're grateful na we're in touch with them and they're helping us out with marshalling. Pero yun po, I think, again, it's really a question of balance. No? I think galit talaga yung mga tao, and if the means of expression is calling out particular politicians, tingin ko pasok naman talaga yan sa freedom of speech. No? But again, as you mentioned, no, there's a certain group na parang they try to go sa INC and then I think correctly parang hinindian sila. They try to, even noong September 21, they tried to sort of latch on to yung EDSA protest and I think the Luneta protest as well, and rightly hinindihan naman sila. Medyo sanay na rin po tayo sa modus nila, and we're a bit more we're more on top of sort of keeping an eye on the perimeter to make sure na if they're there, it will be very clear to our participants that that's not part of our program, and then as much as possible not to engage na.
Okay, so I spoke with Bayan Chairperson Teddy Casino on the show, and sabi niya nun na, I mean, very clear naman din yung proposal ng Transition Council, and this is seen as their sort of alternative to the current broken system that has allowed corruption to pervade from many different sides, no? How about the Trillion Peso March movement? I know you're calling out political dynasties, calling out corruption, but in realistic, concrete terms, how do you imagine that change to happen? And are you happy with the way investigations have been going?
I think investigations they're going, there's some positive steps, but largely medyo mabagal pa rin. Kasi nakita pa lang nating nakukulong ay, if I'm not mistaken, mga district engineers and contractors pa lang, yung mga political officials na involved dito. Si Zaldico pa lang ating na-issuehan ng arrest warrant. Supposedly more are coming, and we're anticipating that. But we also look with some concern dito sa parang wavering position ng administration towards Speaker Martin Romualdez na 2 weeks ago, the line of the president was no evidence. Last week, it was, okay, baka kakasuhan na siya. And then this last week, if I'm not mistaken, I've heard some statements backtracking on that. So I think there are some positive steps, but largely I wouldn't say we're satisfied with the way the investigations are going. But in terms of what's realistic, definitely the legal end is important. But I'd also like to say that accountability is also political. And that means using the ballot to turn our backs on these politicians na paulit-ulit yung pangalan nila. And we've seen that happen before. No? When the PDAF scam happened, si Bong Revilla, Jingoy Estrada, and the late Juan Ponce Enrile, 2 out of 3 failed their re-election in 2019. The last one, Bong Revilla, was only propped up by the Duterte administration in their slate. No? So I think if the current admin is serious about anti-corruption, a very important step is don't endorse any of these politicians na paulit-ulit yung pangalan nila sa mga corruption scandals, and then let the chips fall where they will in 2028 and face the music of the will of the people.
Pero sabi ng rally sa Luneta, mga grupo doon, ay why wait till 2028? Pwede na tayo mag-special elections ngayon. There is a way to make this transition council that they're proposing within legal bounds. Mag-issue daw ng executive order, let the Senate President take over, tapos mabubuo siya ng transition council made of people from different sectors. Tapos magkakaroon ng halalan. Tapos magpapasa ng swiftly ng anti-political dynasty bill. Was there ever an attempt for your group to unite with them? Meron bang pag-uusap para isa na lang yung panawagan dito sa mga rallying ito?
So I think yung point sa Transition Council, I think there's a lot to unpack there. Kasi there's bits of that na pasok pa rin sa Constitution. No? So kung sakaling mag-resign yung presidente tsaka yung vice-presidente na hopefully walang papel yung military dyan, since that also would be outside the Constitution, the civilian authority should be above. No? But if the president or vice-president were both to resign, tama naman. The Senate president takes over and then he is, currently it's he, no? He is mandated to pass a law setting a special election. No? I forget the number of days required, but he is mandated to pass such a law. Pero hindi ko alam kung saan papasok dyan yung Transition Council within the bounds of the Constitution. Kasi yung Transition Council, sino-sino yan? Ano yung mandato nila? And again, I think it would be wrong to put any unelected body in power, whether that's a junta, Transition Council, whatever have you, without passing through the ballot. No? So I think in terms of yung mga anti-dynasty, we're fighting for that. Strangely enough, while I still wouldn't say there's like more than a 50% chance that it'll get passed. We have seen some progress on the anti-dynasty front. No? Si Speaker Boji, whether it's a credible thing or not, binanggit niya na priority niya yung anti-dynasty. So we will pressure him on that. And let's push the means within the Constitution first. Kasi at least kami sa Trillion Peso March, yung commitment natin sa 87 Constitution is ironclad. And that's the basis of any kind of cooperation with any other.
Because some are criticizing the Trillion Peso organizers for refusing to demand President Marcos's resignation. In fact, they also accuse your side of being protectors of BBM. What do you say to that? No? Na dito na lang pumapanig kasi ayaw maupo lamang si VP Sara. What are your thoughts on those comments?
So my view is we are loyal to the Constitution, no? And the constitutional system, which we all participated in 2022, produced a president and a vice president. No? We're not satisfied with that president, and I believe that President Marcos has made the best argument that anyone has in the last few years of why Marcos should never be president. No? By his actions, by allowing all of this corruption to happen, and I think he will face the consequences of his. Whether it's just negligence or complicity, he will face the consequences of that in 2028, which is the democratic system. No? Pag nagkakaroon ng corruption, definitely cases should be filed, but there's also political accountability, and that happens during elections. He faced a bit of that in 2025. Kaya talagang talong-talo yung alliances slate. He'll face that again in 2028. And then as for Vice President Sara Duterte, again, I think it's fairly clear that I don't believe that she should be president. I think that she's done things that are clearly impeachable between corruption and sort of violent tendencies. But if President Marcos were to resign or were to be impeached, she's the successor, no? And so we need to decide, is that an acceptable condition either? And then for those who say, okay, neither, then Senate President takes over, baka pwede pa rin yun kung kusang magre-resign yung dalawa. But if what happens is there's a transition council inserted in between, saan yung mandato nun? Because as much as I don't like President Marcos and as much as I don't like VP Sara, they did receive the mandate of the people in 2022. And that's something that, with humility, I have to recognize that is it's the constitutional order that they follow to occupy that position.
But taking a look at the magnitude of corruption, you already said VP Sara is impeachable. But what do you think about the president? I mean, he has, according to command responsibility, right? He has allowed all of this to happen. Kung dati pa lang alam na niya na meron ganung nangyayari, napagalitan niya na si House Speaker at si Congressman Zaldico, according to Congressman Toby Chanco, bakit hindi niya pinigilan? And this is all happening under his administration.
But I think in terms of command responsibility, I'd have to review kung that directly is impeachable. But definitely, I think if more evidence materializes that substantiates yung comments ni Zaldico, which is why I think on the one hand, si Zaldico should come home, tama naman yung sinasabi. But on the other hand, I think the Marcos administration, one, needs to make sure he comes home safely so he can give his testimony and then there can be a bit more credibility to it. And two, they need to recuse themselves from the investigations. Tama na yung the ICI, while it was something we called for, I think it's increasingly untenable that it serves at the pleasure of the president. So he should, if he's serious about anti-corruption and clearing his name, certify as urgent the bill that creates an independent ICI. So he has no more role in the investigation, and the ICI can go where the evidence takes them. So I think in that sense, if it's from there, evidence emerges that is clearly impeachable, then I think that definitely will have to be pursued if we want to stay within the bounds of the Constitution. But as of now, the call is again for the president to recuse himself from the investigations by certifying the ICI bill as urgent.
All right, invite everyone to your protest this coming November 30.
And po, so again, November 30, there are protests all over the country. Sa Metro Manila, nabanggit na yung Luneta. We're organizing the group sa People Power Monument. And then all over the country, Cebu, Palawan, places in Mindanao, talagang may iba't ibang mga versions ng Trillion Peso March na magaganap doon. So wherever you are, please join, please make your voices heard laban sa corruption. And if you're here in Metro Manila or kung punta kayo dito sa Maynila, yung Trillion Peso March po, magsisimula yan mga 8:30, 8:45 sa EDSA People Power Monument. See you there po November 30 for part 2 of the Trillion Peso March.
We pray for a peaceful protest this coming Sunday. Maraming salamat for joining us and telling us all about the stand that you're making. We have Gilas Pilipinas co-convener Kiko bid for interim release. What does this mean for the case moving forward? We'll speak with Attorney Cristina Conti to break that down when Morning Matters returns. Good morning, I'm Gretchen Ho here in Morning Matters. We talk about the most pressing issues and give you the context behind the headlines. Former President Rodrigo Duterte will skip today's reading of the ICC Appeals Chamber's judgment on his bid for interim release. In a filing dated November 27, his defense team submitted a signed waiver confirming he will not attend the proceedings, whether physically or virtually. The court granted permission for the waiver, allowing the verdict to proceed without Duterte's presence. The oral judgment will be announced at 10:30 in the morning at The Hague or 5:30 p.m. in the Philippines. Duterte's appeal challenges the chamber's September 26 decision ordering his continued detention, a ruling his lawyers have called erroneous. The former president was arrested on March 11 under an ICC warrant for crimes against humanity over his war on drugs. And to tell us more about what will happen today, we have ICC Assistant to Counsel, Attorney Cristina Conti. Good morning. Welcome back to Morning Matters.
Good morning, Gretchen.
Okay, so nagdeklara na kahapon na hindi dadalo si former President Duterte dito sa hearing na ito, and his defense will represent him instead. I guess, what should we expect for today's reading of the decision? And will it be the same as the last time that we saw the former president?
It will be the same as the 2021 hearing. If you remember, we also heard from the appeals chamber then on the deferral request of the Philippine government. Yung hearing na yon, medyo similar dun sa nakaraan, kaya lang doon, talagang basa lang. They will call the case and then they will read the decision. There will be no further arguments from either parties unless, of course, the court says, okay, give your closing arguments, maybe. But I would say that the decision is already written and will simply be read at this hearing. The court room is scheduled for about or reserved for 2 hours. Pero it's unlikely to go over that. And I would say mabilis lang to. Siguro 1 hour. Hindi naman nila siguro babasahin yung buong decision. But of course, they have 2 hours at most. And it will just be a summary, probably, of the decision and possibly dissenting decisions. We'll be seeing a team or a group of 5 judges sitting as the appeals chamber, and there will be, as usual, the prosecutor, the defense, and sort of for the first time, we will have the victims represented through the Office of the Public Counsel for Victims. So 3 ang kaharap ng judges.
Oo. I did see your post on Facebook about the judges. Anong napansin mo dito sa composition ng appeals chamber?
Well, the appeals chamber is composed of course, seasoned judges. The presiding officer, the presiding judge will be a woman again. And so we'll see probably 2 out of 4 talking heads are women. So half-half, unlike the previous hearing where only the judge was a woman. We will see Manjayayan Yang and we will see Nicholas Kaufman, in fact, for the first time as kumbaga, lead counsels. But what would be very important for us is that the victim's interest will be represented through OPCV, through Paulina Masida. Previously, there was parang may umupo lang, pero ito, ang victims talaga have yung interest of the victims has been ordered to be represented through the OPCV. Later on, if the victims or as soon as the victims are qualified, saka mag-a-appoint ng counsel of choice. And isa lang dun sa judges, no? There is a judge who will sit tomorrow. Gotcha Lord Kipanidse, if I pronounced that right. Si Judge Lord Kipanidse, ang isa sa dissenting opinion nung 2021. Nung 2021, pinag-usapan natin yung pwede bang i-postpone yung investigation, hindi ba dapat ipaubaya sa Pilipinas yung nangyayari. The judge then said, well, hindi naman dapat na pag-usapan to dahil walang jurisdiction ang ICC to hear the case. This is precisely the cited argument of the defense in their separate jurisdiction question. So, I guess we'll see him there as one of the judges.
Yun ang aabangan natin. But speaking of the OPCV, how have they worked with you? Because you're also lawyer to the victims. Not just you, we have also Gilbert Andres. We also have Joel Butuyan, lawyers to the victims. Are you in close contact with the OPCV?
Yes. So the OPCV has tried to contact all the lawyers who are involved in the processes, and they do this through the registry. Kasi yung victims, sa registry nagpapatala, kumbaga. Sa registry, sinasabi din ng biktima, ito po yung mga abogado na namin. And because we have a long-standing relationship with the registry, Center Law and UPL, we have closely coordinated with Paulina Masida. And in some of the pleadings, you can see that she has quoted councils and organizations who represent the victims. She consults from time to time.
But at the end, there will only be appointed one legal counsel for the victims?
Later on, kasi now, she's called on to represent the general interests of victims. Later on, the court will clarify if the victims have already been named, kung victims participating, sino ang abogado nila. They can have the lawyer of choice. There have already been names forwarded to the ICC. They can appoint one or probably a team. Sabi nga nung registry, this is a big task, so they will appoint a team. And that team could work with or directly or indirectly with the OPCV. So it's a variety of scenarios. Pero later on, kumbaga, the victims will be allowed to appoint a counsel of choice.
Okay. In the reading today of the decision of the appeals chamber, will we also see the defendant and the prosecution make arguments or final na yun? Pag kung ano yung dinicide, yun na yun talaga?
Well, probably wala na yun. Nabanggit ko kanina, baka may parang bigyan sila ng pagkakataong magsalita just to make their manifestations. Pero essentially, the decision has been written. and will just be read today. Kaya kung ano mang sasabihin before will unlikely affect the decision. Probably at the end of the hearing, they will hear from the lawyers. Do you have any further issues to discuss? Baka mas ganun na lang. Pero it's really just the reading of the decision. The judges, of course, can choose to do whatever they can within the courtroom.
Going to the possibilities of that decision, how often does the appeals chamber, in your experience, overturn a decision by the ICC?
I won't go with that because it would often depend on the issues on hand. So if I were to look at the decision on interim release, highly impossible na mapayagan ng ICC ang isang akusado ng crimes against humanity na makalaya at this stage of the proceedings. Ang mga pinapayagan sa kasaysayan ng ICC na makalaya ay ang charges sa kanila ay parang sa atin obstruction of justice. This is Article 70. This is so-called the fifth crime of the court. Offenses against the administration of justice. Hindi yung dun sa four main cases. And as to the timing, there has been parang one na parang, meron din akong charge na ganito, na mabigat. Kaya lang meron din kasi siyang Article 70 crime. But anyway, yung pagpayag sa kanya came at a much later stage in the proceedings when evidence had already been received. Tayo, hindi pa nga tayo nakakatungtong dun sa confirmation of charges hearing. We only have the draft charges as of now as proposed by the prosecutor. Hindi pa yan final. Kaya I would say it's highly unlikely that the judges will, kumbaga, deny or rather grant the appeal and grant interim release for Duterte.
And not to mention, no, the ICC also mentioned that the Vice President's remarks, they cited her remarks and actions as key factors in the decision not to, or to deny the interim release request. Yung sinabi niya na she would break her father out of the ICC detention. So medyo malaking bagay, nakikinig yung ICC sa political happenings.
Yes, and actually if you look at the entire video, so I would say na offhand niyang binabanggit yon. May time pa nga na parang patawa siya. Pero it was addressed not only to, kumbaga, herself, it was addressed to, yung 16 million na bumoto. Alam nyo na, parang ganon. Kaya, the identity of the speaker is important in any speech. Kung meron bang clear and present danger dun sa sasabihin niya. This is someone who has the capacity really to instruct people and in the position. She's a Duterte and she's the Vice President of the Philippines. Kaya may possibility na even if not under her instructions, someone can act on it.
And if the appeal is rejected, what is the next step for the defense?
Well, essentially, the next step for them, well, of course, they have a chance to appeal the appeal. Tawag nga natin MR. I don't know if they will avail of that. Hindi uso sa ICC yan, pero let's see. May minsan nang nagtatry. In any case, they should focus on the other issues as well. Sa appeals chamber, coming up next would be the issue of jurisdiction, already rejected by the pretrial chamber. But of course, Kaufman and Dov Jacobs can argue further in the appeals chamber. I think mas may laban sila dun, mas may kakampi. Again, Lord Gotcha Lord Kigpanitse is there.
Minemorize
someone who has already said. So, ewan natin. But then, at the pretrial chamber, and this is more urgent, I would say, December 5 is the deadline for the experts to give their opinion on the fitness to stand trial of Duterte. On December 12, parties can comment on the input of the independent experts. So by January, I would say the court, the pretrial chamber, can talk about the fitness to stand trial. Kung ano mang maging desisyon nun, of course, it will be appealed. So we're looking at two issues, one before the appeals chamber and one before the pretrial chamber.
Oo, kasi meron pang tatlo ito, no? Yung interim release, yung fitness to stand trial at yung jurisdiction issue. Now, we'll go through the same process as what we have today.
Yes, more or less. So, yung today kasi parang Supreme Court na nila yung nag-a-announce. Ang next na nakapila sa Supreme Court, yung jurisdiction. The
Okay, so this is the
court
highest court na. Kung Supreme
Yes,
Court.
this is the final. Sa ICC, you have the pre-trial chamber, trial chamber,
Okay.
and then the appeals appeals chamber. Whatever both the pre-trial chamber or the trial chamber decides, ang akyat mo, ang Supreme Court mo, quote-unquote, is the appeals chamber.
No, I do remember you arguing that there is no reason to postpone the confirmation of charges kasi iba naman yung confirmation of charges dun sa actual trial. Is there I mean, what do you see are playing out, no? Do you think that will happen after all of these have been decided on? Or maaaring mabump up yan at mapaaga?
Well, I think that what the judges have said is that they will talk about confirmation of charges after deciding on fitness to stand trial.
Okay.
Kaya lang yun nga yung argument namin eh. Kaya nga fitness to stand trial trial.
Kasi trial.
Hindi
Okay.
fitness to stand pre-trial, di ba? In fact, look at today. Duterte can opt out of some proceedings, including confirmation of charges hearing. Kaya pwede siyang mag-waive ng appearance. Kaya sabi namin, sayang, dapat tinuloy na natin ng September para at least we can talk about more substantial issues, especially the charges, come 2026.
So amongst the three issues, pinaka-sticking point probably would be the fitness to stand trial issue, no?
For Duterte. Pero for others, it would be jurisdiction. Because if there's no jurisdiction, the alleged warrant against Bato and what have you could be, kumbaga, nullified. Wala ang lahat. So, mas mabigat yung jurisdiction kasi totally exit ang ICC. Pero, syempre, mas impactful yung fitness to stand trial kay Duterte.
I wanted to go to another personality who is moving around The Hague, and that is former presidential spokesperson Harry Roque. What do you think really happened there? Do you think that he really just made an 8-month-long mistake? Na hindi pala sa Netherlands, sa Austria pala, dapat mag-apply?
Well, at face value, what he says is he consulted the Dutch officials, and when he applied, kumbaga, all in siya. Kaya lang, what I would see is his lack of urgency. Meron kasing, kumbaga, why did he want to stay in the Netherlands? Because he wanted to stay with Duterte. Yun yung lagi niyang sinasabi eh, as much as possible nga, hindi ako aalis dito eh. Unfortunately, for us, but fortunately for him, asylum rules are kind of lax. In fact, di ba hanggang December 10 pa nga daw yung pag-decide niya kung anong mangyayari dun sa, kung pupunta ba siya ng Austria. Medyo may mga deadlines na mahaba patungkol dyan. Kaya he was able to put it off. Pero it is clear to me that there was a political decision to remain in The Hague. It was to make a stand with Duterte, which I think could do him bad in his own asylum request.
Why? Why so?
Well, because it says that you're not here for your personal, kumbaga, on the merits of your personal case, but you're backed on the issues of another. And kumbaga parang akala ko ba ikaw ang may problema, hindi yung ibang tao. And well, if I were to go na, he wanted to offer his services, diba, as a lawyer. So that was one of the parang logical reasons. He couldn't do that under the asylum rules. He cannot work while asking for asylum. Or he could work under very limited conditions. Kaya naging question mark din yon. So what is he here for? For Duterte. He's here for, I guess, moral support. Or well, he's there for moral support. So
maaaring mag-conflict yung mga statements niya.
So he really has to be careful.
Okay, last question. No? You don't have to answer this lengthily kasi kahit si Attorney Andres ayaw din niya. Pero saan mas advisable for the spokesperson to stay? In Netherlands or in Austria?
Safer? Well, I wouldn't know because it's feeling where does he feel safer? Pero At this point, I think there's a whole community around him in the Netherlands. Pero I cannot say legally if it would be better for him. From what it appears, kung ako yung sa facts available, dapat Austria because of the Dublin regulation. So, choice niya yan. And if he stays in the Netherlands after, from what I understand, after December 10, the Netherlands will have to decide on his asylum request. It can choose to deny his asylum based on the facts available.
Well, alam naman natin ang Netherlands, ang Hague mismo, no, center yan for law, for lawyers and legal, I guess, luminaries went around there also, no. Kaya iba rin ang dynamic dyan. So we'll see if magpe-pay off itong taya ni spokesperson Harry Roque. In the meantime, maraming salamat. We shall watch out for the hearing that is set to happen today, 5:30 p.m. in the Philippines. But as usual, maraming salamat for lending us your expertise. We have ICC Assistant to Counsel, Attorney Cristina Conti.
Thank you. And we will be at the watch party later with the victims.
Watch party. Wow, okay. 5:30.
Yes. Thank you.
In other news, Employers Confederation of the Philippines President Sergio Ortiz Luis Jr. backs the call of several business groups for mandatory lifestyle checks on all government officials. In an interview with The Big Story, Ortiz Luis said the proposal is not a bad idea amid corruption issues hounding the government. However, he noted that the term mandatory should be clarified, suggesting that parameters need to be defined. The call was made by the country's largest business groups, including the Makati Business Club, the Management Association of the Philippines, Financial Executives Institute of the Philippines, or FINEX, and the Shareholders Association of the Philippines.
I want the third lifetime check would be good, so that we're trying to overhaul our system of governance and our politicians. So I think it's high time that we do something like that.
And this year's Freedom of Information Summit highlights access to environmental data as a key tool in fighting climate change and disaster risks in the Philippines. Mobile Journal Fatima Baduria reports.
One way to combat the climate crisis is a strong freedom of information or FOI ecosystem in the Philippines. That is the message of this year's FOI Summit, which encourages efforts from the government down to the grassroots level. The FOI Summit is pushing for the passage of the FOI law, ensuring transparency and access to information for all Filipinos. This year's edition of the summit, held in Muntinlupa City, focused on the significance of environmental data access as part of citizens' right to information. It comes at a time when the country is experiencing the severe impacts of typhoon and flooding.
Access to information also saves lives in the face of disasters and climate change. Indigenous and rural communities are often the first hit by typhoons, landslides, and floods, but the least to receive hazard maps, early warnings, or adaptation plans.
Central to the issues discussed is the absence of an FOI law. While an FOI manual is in place to facilitate data requests from the public, users say the list of exceptions hinders accessibility. Meanwhile, the Presidential Communications Office says it remains committed to implementing FOI. PCO also says that more local government units now have FOI ordinances or executive orders.
There are now 97 local government units that heeded the call to mainstream local access to information, upholding greater transparency and accountability down to the local level.
DENR's Ruth Manigos Tawan also mentioned that FOI not only fosters government accountability, but also enables citizens' engagement.
The FOI is turning it into a way for ordinary and common people to take part in decision-making related to environment.
Last September, the PCO and UNESCO held the International Day for Universal Access to Information Global Conference in Manila. It also tackled the critical role of environmental information to disaster preparedness. Kapatid, Fatima Baduria, we are One News.
Gilas Pilipinas begins its quest for the 2027 FIBA World Cup and the 2028 Olympics with a crucial game against Guam at the Calvo Fieldhouse. The first game tips off at 5 p.m. Manila time with the return leg set for Monday at the Blue Eagle Gym. Coach Tim Cone stressed that winning these games is essential for World Cup qualification. With Australia and New Zealand expected to advance, the Philippines and Guam will compete for the last spot in Group A. And that wraps up today's episode of Morning Matters. We hope we've given you the right start to your morning. Let's go ahead and make the day and the weekend matter. My name is Gretchen Ho. Kapatid, we are One News, all sides, all the time.